When did you first discover your flipping skill, or are you just now finding it? In episode 156 of the Flipping Genius, we will talk a little about the origins of flipping, sort of a back to basics episode. I'm going to talk about where I got started as well as answer a few questions that some of you have asked about accounting and keeping on the right side of things legally.
If you buy and sell vehicles for a profit or you want to, you're in the right place. This is the Flipping Genius podcast. Our number one goal is to help our listeners make more money. Every episode, we share information, ideas, and experiences of real-life car flippers. I'm Randy Lee. I'm the host of Flipping Genius. I've flipped cars most of my life. For over a dozen years now, I've been a licensed dealer. I am working to build the best podcast about successfully flipping cars for a consistent profit. Let's get to it, flippers.
For me, I think it all started when I saw a box in the garbage at work. Uh, the box was a golf ball box, and work was the golf course where I started working as a caddy at 10 years old. I grabbed this Titleist brand golf ball box out of the trash can that was next to the pro shop at the country club where I was caddying. I started working when I was 10 years old, and I pulled that Titleist box out, and later on I filled it up with balls that I had found in the creeks and the woods and the weeds when I was out caddying. First, I washed those balls and I polished them and made them look as new as good as new. And then I sorted them by brand and by number, and I filled that box back up, turned them all so that they faced exactly the right direction. Um, Made it look like as close as coming out of the retail store as possible. And the next thing I did is I found a place to sell my balls, and in the end, I learned that I could make more money selling golf balls on Mondays. Sometimes I could make more money on Mondays on my day off selling golf balls than I could all week long caddying and working my tail off carrying heavy bags. And that is when I think the flipping gene was born inside me or clicked on. And ever since then, my eyes see things different than they used to. And that's what we're going to talk about today on Flipping Genius. So just thinking back in those days, um, that was 1970, I believe, that I'm talking about, because I am 62 years old now. And I'll tell you how that started. My dad was a golfer, and he had caddied when he was a young man. Thought it'd be a good idea for us to have that same experience. And in a way, it was probably true. Dad put us in the front seat of his car, and he drove. In my instance, I was the only one driving out. He had brought my older brothers out years before. Drove me out there and said, "Pay attention, because I'm only driving you here one time." It was a 5 mile bike ride to the golf course eventually, but the first time he drove me in the car, introduced me to the caddy master. And there's lots and lots of stories about my time at Inverness Country Club in Toledo, Ohio. That's where I first became employed. And the fact is, as I think back, there were probably a few times before that I had figured out some ways to make extra money. Make money. I didn't have extra money. It was I didn't get an allowance or any free money. I think the first thing that comes to mind is I used to pick up Coke bottles and take them back and get the deposit money for them. And then I'd use that money for important things like football cards. But when I was 10, I started making some serious money because you'd go out and you'd work every day, and I was expected to be at the golf course every day, or Tuesday through Sunday, every day. Mondays the golf course was closed, and they did some extra care to the golf course, and the caddies could actually go play golf if they wanted to. And I did. I'd carry my 5 iron on my uh, J.C. Higgins bicycle, my hand-me-down bicycle from my older brother Brad, and I would ride out there and I'd play 9 or 18 holes with just a 5 iron, and I could play pretty well for a kid with a 5 iron at a world-class golf course. But it wasn't long before I realized I could be making some money on Mondays, and that's how it started. It started when I first saw that box. And I think the significant thing here is that in my mind, it started with the box, not the balls, because I'd been finding golf balls with my dad. He'd take me, we called it golf ball hunting, and we'd go walk along. I'd walk along the creek, and Dad would have hip waders on and go in the water in the creek, and we'd sneak in to the country club there and find golf balls. We go to the country club to look for the balls because those guys played the best golf balls. They didn't buy the cheap golf balls like I would. And so we'd find those Titleist balls, which were the best ones at the time. And I remember my dad would say, "What'd you get?" And I'd say, "I got a Titleist," and he'd trade me for a Max Fly, or he'd trade me for a Top Flight. He wanted the Titleist, but that's fine too, because I'd find Top Flight boxes and I'd find Max Fly boxes, and I'd get those because the guys at the country club would buy them out of a box at a time. They'd also buy sleeves of the balls. Now, if you're not a golfer, you don't know what I'm talking about, but a sleeve is just one that carries 3 balls, and usually sometimes there'd be 4 of those inside the box of a dozen golf balls, which was how they usually sold them back then. And my point being that presentation was key. And you're going to say, "Well, Randy, why are you talking about this?" But think about that. Think about that. I had the golf balls, which is what people wanted to buy, but I recognize that part of the fact, that part of the reason why people were willing to spend more money on those golf balls at the retail store, number one is they were in a retail store, but number two, when they got them, they looked like new. So if I could make them look like new, I recognize I could get more money for them. So I'd clean those balls up. I'd put them inside the sleeves and inside the boxes, and then I would put them in a bigger box, and I'd carry them out to the golf course, to the public golf course, and that's where I decided to be the best place to sell them. We didn't have eBay or Facebook Marketplace or any tools like that at the time. I was too young to actually think of any other way to advertise the balls or anything else I was going to sell. But it wasn't too young to recognize that if I could get in front of potential customers with a product that looked palatable, I could make a deal. So I went out to I think it was about the 5th or 6th hole at the public course that was closest to me, which is probably about 1.5 miles, 2 miles away. And I would ride through the woods, and I would set up a little stand there, and I would sell those golf balls to the golfers as they came through on Mondays, because that course was still open on Mondays. They only closed the country club on Monday, and the guys would walk up, and I can't remember exactly how much I got for a dozen balls, but I got a good price for them because they had just lost some balls on the water hole right before this. I remember I thought that through too. There was a pond on the hole right before the hole that I set up on. So the guys had just lost some balls, and now they walk up, and here's a kid selling what looks like brand new balls in the box, and he's selling them for about half of what you would pay for them at the local department store. And it worked pretty great. And I also recognized that I could sell other things there. And I found other things to sell, golf clubs that I would find. I think I sold some candy. I can't remember what else, but I had it all with me there, and it made sense that I could sell it. And if you think, again, that all translates, because when we get a vehicle now, all these years later, I think I'm kind of doing the same thing. I'm looking at that vehicle and thinking, how can I maximize the value of this vehicle? So apparently, shining up a car, shining up golf balls is pretty much the same thing, right? You want to make them look as presentable as possible and make people want to purchase them. And then how can I make extra money? Now, we haven't really spoken a lot about it, but there's a lot of dealers who are making a lot of money selling warranties. I sell warranties. I generally don't make any extra money. It's just something I like to tack on to a deal to give people peace of mind. But I could be making an extra $100, $200, $300 in warranty money. Same thing if you are finding a way to sell a maintenance plan, or if you're financing. All these things are add-ons that you could add on to your deal and make more money down the road. Same kind of thing that when I brought candy bars inside the box instead of set them up alongside the box of balls. It was also a what a learning ground when you're 10 years old and you're dealing with adults. And some of those guys are pretty nice, but some of them would try to steal your stuff. Some of them would definitely try to get you down off your price, and you had to learn how to negotiate. And what a great training ground Ottawa Park golf course was. And I also learned about authority and the long arm of the law because the guys that ran the pro shop there would come out. They'd get wind that there was a kid out there selling golf balls on the fifth or sixth hole or whatever, and they'd come out there with their cart. Fortunately, I was set up at a spot where I could see them coming. I'd box my stuff up. I'd throw it back on the front of my bike where I had a little clamp thing that would clamp down in the box. I'd strap it down. I'd jump on the bike and I'd ride back through the woods. I never got caught. So staying legal. Yeah, I don't think I was very legal at the time, but I was a 10-year-old kid. I never got in trouble doing that. Learned a lot about negotiation. I learned a lot about asking for forgiveness, not permission. And that's something that I still recognize today. Now, I think these days I lean heavily on doing things that I don't have to ask for forgiveness for, because the consequences are much more serious. And that's something I wanted to talk about a little bit today too. It is fascinating. It fascinated me as I started to think about that, the origins of my flipping. And I'd love to hear your stories. If you guys have stories you'd like to share about how you got into this mindset or how you got specifically into flipping cars, share them with me. Flippingquestions@gmail.com, or just go to flippinggenius.com, send me a message at our website, or go to the Car Flipping Forum. Just search Flipping Genius on Facebook groups and you'll find the forum. If you're not a member yet, join. Send me questions, send me information, send me your stories, or write me, and maybe you'll come on and we can talk on the podcast, and you can tell me some stories. There's some great ones that I've already heard, and I would love to be able to share them. But it's even better if you share your story with our audience. And our audience is now in almost 80 countries around the world, and in every state in the United States. Canada, Mexico, and like I said, I think there's 78 countries that folks are listening. So there's a lot of interesting stories to be told. A lot of things we could share with each other. It'd be a lot of fun. Like I said, I want to talk about some other questions that folks have asked me about accounting and legal issues. And before I do, let me walk a little bit further. Like I said, so golf balls got me started, but there were other things that I learned to flip along the way. Bicycles I mentioned earlier. There were record albums. I found that I could buy these here and I could sell them there and make some extra money. I found ways to do that, and eventually it worked up to cars, because that was really the first thing that I touched that had a significant value. And I recognized that I could buy a car that needed repair do the repairs, get the benefit of having a decent looking car, and then sell it for a profit. That's as simple as it was at the outset. And when I came back to it, when I formed my current company and got a car dealer's license in the state of Alabama and became a full-time car dealer, by the time that came around, I had already done so much in the world of flipping in general, everything from musical instruments to clothing to tobacco products to sunglasses. There's just been tons of things that I have essentially learned to flip, and a lot of my friends have done similar things. So when I got back to the car business, by then I had also done real estate, which was really a big inspiration for Flipping Genius, because um, flipping is a term that I usually heard to do with real estate, and something that I had done quite a bit of, um, and enjoyed. I had become licensed in 3 states in real estate, did a lot of investment property, and had a lot of success. But I recognized that cars, as you've heard me say, can be done for a lot less money, and the return on investment usually is even higher and quicker than with real estate. And that's the exciting thing about it. But the other thing that you have to realize, that you've got to abide by the laws of your state. And those state laws are different from one state to another. Some of them are very similar. But we've talked about that, about the limitations of how many cars you can flip without a dealer's license. And that is different from one state to another. So it's something that you need to know about. And then as you become a licensed dealer, that's when I think the laws get even more important to follow. This is something that I recognize, because I do some part-time consulting and marketing work with the Alabama Independent Auto Dealers Association. You've heard Randy Jones come on and talk to us about the AIADA and the National Independent Auto Dealers Association. They do a tremendous job of keeping us informed of rule changes and law changes, and these rules and laws are significant. There are some significant things that we need to know about, especially in the areas of recalls, and that we're informing our customers about potential recalls that are needed on cars. There's some recent changes that are absolutely vital. If you're listening to my voice and you are a used car dealer and you are not aware of these changes, number one, write me and ask me. I don't want to go into all the details right here, but send me a question at flippingquestions@gmail.com, and I'll be happy to get back with you, or get back with me, through the website or through the forum. If you have questions about this, better yet, reach out to your local association. If you're in Alabama, reach out to Randy Jones, because he's where I'm going to go. He has the answers, but these are answers you need to know. I've talked to you about the mandatory training and the mandatory setup that we need to abide by the FTC rules for keeping customer information filed properly. This is a mandatory rule change that took place in December of last year. If you do not have the proper filing set up, if you don't have the organization set up properly, you are in violation, and you can lose your license, and you can be fined, and the fines are hefty. And I don't like just using the mic to scare you. That's not it's not my goal, but I feel like it's my obligation. My obligation is to inform you. And if you're not aware of that, I think it was December 7th of last year, there was the drop dead date that you needed to have this training. Now the associations are still training, and they're still trying to get the folks in front of the trainers so that they can have the correct documentation, in hopes that they won't get caught without the proper evidence in case they are audited. And if if this is unfamiliar to you, if you're a used car dealer and this is unfamiliar to you, write me, write Randy, reach out to us. Better yet, reach out to your local association and learn about this. It's vital. I'm not going to go into all the details of that because it's not sexy, but it's just absolutely essential. Another question that I've seen come across a few times this week, and it's something we'll probably go into more, are accounting practices. And I'm disappointed. I planned on having a gentleman come on and talk about dealer software, and that never came to fruition. I recognized it this week when I talked to my wife about it. She said, "I thought that guy was coming on, and he never responded to me." So if you're out there and you're in the dealer software business and you would like to come on and talk about your program, I'd like to have you on. I'm not even going to mention the company that I had originally planned to have on. They do a good job. I know they do, and they could talk about the details of accounting and growing and protecting information. And I'm sure they would talk about some of the information I just talked about as far as rules and informing the public about recalls and the other paperwork that's necessary when you close a deal. But specifically, somebody asked, how do you keep track of your expenses on a car flip? And now it was interesting because I think what he was saying is he was doing a straight flip. He was not a licensed dealer, and he wanted to know, do you report the income that you make on a car that you flip? I always have, and I don't. I know that everybody always doesn't. I know that's the truth, but I always have. And the fact is that it's fairly simple. I just use spreadsheets, and of course I've always done. I say always. It is all my memory has always been that there were many vehicles flipped each year. And naturally, the last 13 or 14 years, the number is much higher than it was when I was just flipping. But still, there was a number of vehicles being flipped for profit. Occasionally, I would lose some money. Well, I can't remember many times that I lost money in the early days. But I do lose money on a vehicle or two every year. Unfortunately, I don't try to, but it happens. And I simply keep track of what I spent on repairs, what I spent on parts, and I subtract it from what I sell the vehicle for, and we figure the profit out. It's not rocket science, but it could be done much more efficiently with a dealer software program. I'm in a level that I don't feel a real need to use a formal software program. I'm sure that if you're listening to me, you could probably give me reasons why I should. But I know I'm pretty accurate. Excuse me. Kickapoo Joy Juice. It's the best. Another thing that somebody asked. Oh, Randy, don't forget. They asked about oh, I know. If you are buying your parts without tax, do you have to collect the tax on the part that you bought? I thought that was an interesting question, and I'm not sure if you figured out a way to buy parts without sales tax, but you're not paying sales tax to your state when you sell the product vehicle. I think that could be a problem. I think if you are just a straight flipper, yes, I know that when you sell the car, the individual will pay sales tax on the car to the state, but I believe that the state is kind of getting skipped on the sales tax on the part. So I generally do not try to buy parts without sales tax. Probably stupid of me. Some of my vendors do sell them to me that way. However, yeah, I guess I'm double dipping. Now that I think about it, I'm thinking out loud here because when I pay my mechanic, they typically charge me a sales tax, and then I charge sales tax when I sell the vehicle. So ultimately, I guess I am paying twice. So bad on me. I think I can straighten that out. I believe, and if you're an accountant and you'd like to address this further, and speaking of which, we had an accountant on back, it was around episode 115, I think. I'd have to look up the records, but go back and check that one out. And if you're listening right now, shoot, can't think of your name right now. I know you're down in Texas and you like to turn a vehicle around in 48 hours. It's been a lot of episodes. I don't remember them all, but if you've got something to add along these lines, yeah, I'd love to hear from you. And Vic 45, I'd like to turn them around in 45 days. I think that was it, Vic 45. Vic, if you're out there and you're listening and you've got some things to add on the accounting side, we'd love to hear you. Vic's a member of the Flipping Forum, so you can see his comments on there too. It pretty frequently does comment on there. If you got anything else to add along those lines, share on the Car Flipping Forum. It's a very valuable resource. So that's what I wanted to talk about. I wanted to make sure that we are keeping it legal. If you don't have any questions, if you think everything's straight, fantastic. If you do have questions, reach out to me, flippingquestions@gmail.com. Go to flippinggenius.com, flippinggenius.com, and ask questions there, or go to the Car Flipping Forum. Just search Flipping Genius on Facebook groups, and you'll find us there. Ask others, and they will answer you. The guys that are on there, the folks that are on there, are doing a nice job of communicating. I really, truly appreciate you who are very active on there, and we're going to continue to try to grow. Remember, every episode that we do now is in audio and video. So if you're only listening to the audio, you're missing my beautiful face and the Flipping Genius background that we've reincorporated this month, and any other brilliant things that I put on video. And you can subscribe to our Flipping Genius YouTube channel. It is free, and you can have access to hundreds of video as we make them, not only about the podcast, but other information that we share, all available to you on the Flipping Genius YouTube channel. Please subscribe, please subscribe, please subscribe. Please give us comments if you have questions. If there's a questionnaire, please answer the questions. If you have comments to make, please make your happy, positive comments. And if you got questions, ask those too. We love to have interaction with everybody. And I know we are far from perfect, but we're here to help. Our number one goal of Flipping Genius podcast is to help you make more money. And it's a lot of fun to hear the stories where we do exactly that, and we get to hear some of the cool things that you're doing out there. And like I said, share your flipping stories. Share the origins. We'd love to hear that, and love to share that with other people who listen to the Flipping Genius every week. And thank you for those of you who do. And please share us with your friends. Share us on social media. Share links to the program so other people can learn. And hey, let's work together. Let's make some money. Let's all become Flipping Geniuses.